I shall talk about myself for a reason, though. We shall go into that later. But for the moment, I want all of you to mentally close your eyes. Picture this. You are on the Earth. We are spinning at 1 lakh kilometers per hour around the sun. The sun is spinning at 9 lakh kilometers per hour. The Milky Way at 21 lakh kilometers per hour, and the local cluster at about 100 crore kilometers per hour. In all of this, in the observable universe, there is no sign of life as we know it, except for an exoplanet, where there's some methane and oxygen. And in this planet, we are the highest species known to ourselves with a responsibility. Each one of us has come from a pool of 450 million sperms, give or take. Let's not go there. So the odds of our existence has been calculated at 1 in 10 raised to the power of 2.7 billion. But why am I saying all this? There's a reason. Before that, allow me to introduce myself. We had my twin and I, he's here, have spent our childhood, we were born in Calcutta at a time when Bangladesh was not even born. And then we spent our school days in Chhattisgarh, and like our generation is fond of saying, we actually walked through forests and kilometers and streams and did all that. Were caned by our teachers in mathematics. And then one day my principal called me and along with other teachers said, "Tu kya banna chahta hai? What do you want to become?" So in those days, standard, doctor or engineer. So he told me to make a bucket list. And my bucket list was this. I want to become Amar Chitrakatha cartoonist. I want to drive a tank. Okay. I want to learn dancing. I want to climb Mount Everest. I want to join the army. I want to be a heart surgeon. And if time permits, I also want to go and sit on top of a huge cluster of books. This was my bucket list. He was not very happy. Eventually, I joined the Armed Forces Medical College. I was selected. And life turned. And for the first time, I was aware that extracurricular activities are also extremely interesting. Somehow, paradoxically, I don't know if few people share this thought, whenever exams come or when you're studying medicine or engineering, suddenly everything else is interesting. You want to study about the stars, you want to see Saas Bahu serials, whatever. You want to play games, you want to know the dimensions of everything around you, furniture, and you also want to do things which you never did. So I did all that. I did my cartooning. I was a cartoonist for a newspaper. It gave me a lot of money. They paid me 150 rupees per month, which was a kingly sum at that time. I tried to join All India Radio. They kicked me out. I did everything except medicine, and finally I realized MBBS bhi padna hai. So I cleared that, and then it struck me like a log of bricks, like a ton of bricks, that I'm going to join the army. My mom used to be in tears at times, and when it dawned upon her that I'm finally leaving, it became very difficult. My relatives in Kerala discouraged me. In Kashmir, the militancy was on the rise. In Punjab, the Khalistan movement was picking momentum. And unrest was already gaining traction in Sri Lanka. But I was adamant that I don't want to do anything else but join the army. However, life in the army in the 80s really changed my life. Life at the line of control is a tense journey into the soul of a nation, where even there is little time to make any error or judgment. Even something as trivial as lighting a matchstick on a moonless night or raising a head above a trench can make a little change in the history of that place. Then after that, on to the highest battlefield on earth, the Siachen Glacier. Nothing prepares you for this, believe me. There were pujas before the final ascent to 24,000 feet because we don't know whether we'll come back alive or not. Many of us didn't. You have to master basic ice mountaineering at extreme high altitudes. Learn the loading of each helicopter. And you have to know how to heat frozen petrol inside a snow scooter if the temperature falls below 40 degrees centigrade, which was quite often. You realize that skiing is a way of life, and you learn it on your own. And as a doctor, you survive because you have to for the sake of your men. But you know what is the worst part in the glacier? It is going to the toilet. The toilet is a euphemism. It was a drum. And when you lower the 6 layers of your clothing, the tenderest part of anatomy comes into view, and the wind is blowing at minus 30. Not pleasant. So I wrote to my mom on an Indian letter, Amma, the letters used to reach after 2 months. Amma, my is freezing. And also beyond this, you learn how to retrieve colleagues, sometimes dead, from a crevasse or an avalanche. These are photographs taken in an old camera of mine. Avalanche can be pretty bitter. We had a platoon which was wiped out in a very short time. You learn to resuscitate patients with brain edema, lung edema, after melting the vials of Lasix or whatever you have. And that's a very tricky part because you have to know the melting point or freezing point of every drug. These are things that medicine doesn't teach you. You know how to load yourself onto a helicopter. Dogs are your best friends because they help you find things. And you also realize over a period of time that what medicine teaches you through books is nothing. And your skin can peel off if you get in contact with a metal, which used to happen to us often. Above all, it taught me that when you defend your buddies on a battlefield, you defend them with your life. And as an army doctor, you have to be in front line with them. You have to know exactly what their pulse is. And then words like honesty, integrity, and loyalty are far more valuable than money can buy. You also learn that in this kingship, you forge a companionship that lasts for an eternity or a lifetime, which people don't understand. Well, we have a lot of military courses to do, and unlike what people think, they're a lot of fun at taxpayers' money. And when I did well, I was selected to go on a United Nations military mission to an African nation where war had broken out. So the nation was in shambles. And our battalion was tasked with the difficult job of integrating with the guerrillas along with the local population and also allowing them to surrender their weapons, which was not easy. Everywhere you looked, there were aircraft strewn around. There was devastation. We had to rebuild bridges. We had to rebuild roads. And often we made use of the discarded aircraft, fighter aircraft, or whatever was available to use our own offices because there were no buildings left. And this taught us another valuable lesson. When in Rome, do as Romans do and adapt very fast. This is one of the first lessons of leadership which I got at a very young age. I saw hunger. I've seen a woman eating the dead body of a child. I have seen children feeding off rats off the road and there were no small rodents left. I've seen children stepping on landmines. We had to amputate almost every day. I learned how to perform deliveries in tents, and we also learned how to reduce fractures and dislocations. I had excellent colleagues from the United Nations civilian forces who really helped me. We had to make do with a portable ventilator. Our battalion had to create hundreds of quartering areas. We had to house about 4 to 5 lakh guerrillas and their families and children, treat them for yellow fever and so on and so forth. Nothing of which we were mentally prepared for. And let me be very clear. We were very popular with the locals. And I must say this, the Indian Army is perhaps the only armed force on earth which goes beyond its call, feeding the local population with our own rations. We used to forsake one full day of rations. We have built roads, and this credit due to my superiors and my subordinates. We have built roads, we have demined areas, we have built hospitals, we have lent our own clothing, and we have not come back till we are satisfied that we have done everything. And believe me, teamwork can do a lot. But then we also had fun when we had to. We taught Bhangra, because I was in a Sikh battalion, we taught Bhangra to all the locals. Imagine Africans doing Bhangra. So I took charge of a small school, a small village, and started teaching the children English and Hindi. I was also tempted to teach Malayalam, but they learned the wrong words first. So we had fun at the Atlantic. I learned how to catch fish, lobsters. We learned how to chill, and that's essential when you deal with problems. We mingled with the other armies of the world, and I realized there's a lot that I can learn from them. I learned so much, and I was able to put some of it into practice. We realized that cultural issues really don't matter if you really mean business. And we made swimming pools, we made schools, and our army in that sense is a bit unique. And when we left, there were crowds in every village to see us off. Every village was thronging just to see us off. We also caught the local girls stealing our beer from our canteens. Well, we had to leave that. But as we exited, I realized that a part of all of us we had left behind with us. Then I did my general surgery. I went to Rajasthan. And for the first time, that last thing in my bucket list, I wanted to drive a train. So I was in charge of a military train, and I begged, and the railways allowed me. And here you have the assistant loco pilot, very angrily and very hesitantly handing me the wheel of a train. Sometimes the dreams that you have as a child, they don't leave you. Deep inside, the child is still there. You still want to play with trains and planes. So, and thereafter, we were fortunate to be posted to Tawang, where the Dalai Lama met us. And the Dalai Lama taught me one thing. He said, if you want to lose your temper, and this is something he told all of us, because we army people are very short on temper at times. He said, if you want to lose your temper, then you just close your eyes and think of me. Have I ever lost my temper? So I actually found what he said was true. And he said the other thing. He said, the only people to whom I'm indebted is the Indian Army, because it's because of you that I am where I am. So we started a school. My wife and I, we taught children what little we could there. And then we went on to Bhuj and Kargil. And that's when I realized that there are a lot of communities which go through so much of trouble and difficulties that we're lucky that we're sitting here without any mishap befalling us. And years later, I was able to fulfill my next wish. I joined the Sri Chitra Institute. I was selected and I became a heart surgeon. And all my life, I have felt this as a heart surgeon, that the joy and satisfaction that you as a doctor or as a healer, not necessarily a doctor, as a healer, as a nurse or any, you get from a patient who has done well and who's gone home is enormous. No amount of money can remunerate or replace that feeling. We were the first team in the armed forces and in the country to perform an interstate transplant. We went to PGI Chandigarh, and thanks to the Army, Air Force, and the local police who really helped us creating green corridors, we performed the first transplant way back in 2012. And that was a really good experience where I realized that subordinates can do so much if you motivate them. You have one of the transplant patients here. And then, as is usual, I had to move on to administration in the Army. And when I did, I was tasked in Bhopal, I was given in charge of a hospital, and I was tasked, the ministry and the PMO's office called and they said, can you do one thing? Can you create a hospital in 48 hours? I said, हाँ, हो जाएगा. Because in the Army, you don't say no. हाँ, हो जाएगा. That's when it struck me. I said, हाँ, but I don't have the wherewithal. Believe me, in 48 hours, my subordinates and my seniors, they really rallied around me, and we created a hospital where we took the first lot of air evacuated Indian patients came to us. And there were about 500 of them, and later on, we took on more and more. But as time passed by, it became obvious that things are not so simple. How do you motivate people to enter into an area where patients are dying or where there is a high risk of getting infected? That is where leadership, that is where you learn about leadership. And it's not easy because your subordinates have to be on your side. And then finally, I'm here. I didn't want to prolong this talk because I'm in Amrita, and this is an institution, one of its kind, and where there is space for growth and there is opportunity to be happy and to do whatever you want to do. And everyone here will testify to this. And here I've learned one thing from my past, and I'll wind up this fast, that leadership is not about throwing your rank, showing your degrees, or telling people who you are. Leadership is about listening to people who are with you, including the most supposedly insignificant person sitting in the ward or in the ICU or in the corridor on the roads. Give him his due, listen to him. Because if you're able to convince that one man or woman that he or she is as valuable as you are, your job is half done. And that, my friend, is all I have to say. Thank you.